Hi, everyone. I am so honored to have been asked to speak to all of you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so sorry that I cannot be there in person to join you. My name is Cindy Goldrich, and I am a mental health counselor and an ADHD parent coach and a teacher trainer. I want to share with you a bit about my perspective regarding the incredible importance of having parents, educators, and all of those who support children with ADHD be armed with the latest information, tools, and strategies to help these wonderful children be successful. I am confident you gained a tremendous amount of insights from your conference. You know, my years of experience have shown me time and again that kids with ADHD and executive function challenges are bright, creative, wonderful kids who, for a variety of reasons, are just not performing as they and everyone around them thinks that they should. They're often seen as lazy, difficult, challenging kids, but we know that's not necessarily the case. Parents and educators often want to know two things. How do I get this child to do what's expected? And what do I do when he doesn't? Does this sound familiar for you? I know it seems so fundamental. And I struggled too initially as I got caught up in these questions. The fact is, ADHD is a big, broad topic, and it isn't just about helping kids create the will and the desire to conform to what's expected. We need to all work together. We need to go beyond the inattentive, impulsive, and hyperactive definition of ADHD. And rather than have a deficit or therapeutic approach, I believe we need to view these children as creative, resourceful, and whole, but unfortunately, these kids are often made to feel like square pegs in round holes. They just feel like they're just not understood all the time. I believe that parents parent out of love and logic, and honestly, teachers do the same. But unfortunately, when you have a complex child, love and logic are just not enough. In fact, I honestly believe that any time a child is diagnosed with ADHD, whether or not medication's being considered, parents must receive their own parent coaching. Parents need to have the confidence to know, am I enabling my child or am I supporting my child? Am I being too demanding or maybe I'm being too weak? And everyone tells parents you need to have structure and consistency, but how do you do that in such a chaotic and an inconsistent world? And how can you get your kids to listen to you and open up about their struggles and their desires? Again, these are wonderful kids, right? We need to connect with them. And for the educators, I know you are faced with a multitude of challenges. I do an extensive amount of teacher training here in America in all different kinds of schools, and I know that the issues that you face are threefold. First, how can I help the student who has these ADHD challenges? And second, how can I manage this student in the context of the rest of my class so that they're fitting in and I'm not maybe taking too much time away from the rest of the students in the class? And third, how can I support the parents? What can I do when the parents don't always understand everything they need to know and they don't recognize the complexities of the challenges child is facing? I know that sometimes parents need a lot more of your time, but there are things you can do to help the parents, and it's essential. Again, we all need to work together. I believe that teachers, as I said, teach from love and logic just like the parents do, but you don't always have the tools and the information you need that you desire. And if students are going to be truly successful, I think it's necessary that everyone understands the nuances and the unique challenges that are driving their behavior, including the children themselves. Based on my research, I know that the typical behavior modification programs that are often suggested that focus on rewards and punishments, they don't always work because they're not addressing the core issues that are creating the challenges that students with ADHD face. We need to stop looking for bigger and better ways to motivate these kids, and instead we have to work more collaboratively with the kids. We need to empower them to know about themselves. I believe that parents, educators, and mental health professionals and students must learn a few essential things about what impacts learning and behavior. First, everyone must understand what executive functions are and how this is impacting the brain. I'm sure maybe you've discussed the executive functions, but I'm just going to do a quick little review. Executive functions, we know, are the set of neurologically based skills that have to do with managing ourselves and our resources in order to achieve a goal. Basically, it's how efficiently we do what we decide to do. And it's really not based on intelligence. Your executive functions are located in the front part of the brain that's known as the prefrontal cortex, and it's actually the last part of the brain to develop. Your brain develops from the back of the brain to the front of the brain. So this is where your thinking part of the brain is, the executive functions. And typically, your brain is not fully developed until you're about 25 or 30 years old. The executive functions, these have to do with things like initiation, just that act of getting started, and the ability to focus, and planning, and organizing, and processing speed. Processing speed is that ability to take in information and use it and then do what you need to do with relative accuracy, but it's how quickly you're able to respond verbally or visually, right? Or a motor task. And then, of course, we have working memory. That's sort of using your brain's search engine to do what you need to do. And then there's self-talk. What are we telling ourselves? Are we using that information that we already know, and are we noticing what's around us? It's sort of thinking about what you're thinking about. And then, of course, emotional regulation, which to me, that's at the core of so much of this. Being able to stay calm, manage our emotions appropriately given the situation. So what is truly important to understand here is that these executive functions are all skills. These are skills that kids develop over time. And we want the kids to understand that these are skills. When we think of them as skills and not expectations, it really changes how we view ourselves and the children who may be delayed in mastering some of these skills. For example, if a kid's having a hard time being organized, maybe he's not as organized as his peers, but he's so intelligent that we expect he should be able to do this, like he should be able to pack up his backpack at the end of the day or stay organized, right? And it's not unusual when they're not for a parent or an educator to become frustrated, assuming that, well, the kid could if they wanted to, and maybe the kid's being lazy or they're not motivated. And of course, this child is thinking about themselves. Why is everyone else able to do all these things that I'm not? Am I as smart as them? So we have to be careful to view these as skill deficits, not just poor behavior, not just lack of intelligence. Because as a deficit, we know we can teach, we can support, we can provide accommodations, we can provide modifications, just like when a kid is deficit in learning how to read, okay? And keep in mind, by the way, that people who have ADHD can be up to 30% delayed in their executive function skills. The second thing I think is important is that we all have to realize the impact of stress on learning, because the fact of the matter is that stress can shut down learning. Remember I said that the brain develops from the back of the brain to the front of the brain, and that the front of the brain is the prefrontal cortex where the executive functions are? Well, the back part of the brain, that's where your emotions are. In fact, we call that the reptilian part of the brain, the reptile part, the primitive part of the brain. That's where the amygdala is. And that's where we experience emotions. But when we're all stressed out, what happens is the front part of the brain shuts down, and it's the back part where all the blood is, where all the energy is going. So we get shut down and our brain goes into survival mode. And what does that look like? Fight, flight, and freeze. So we're not able to learn, right? So we need to think about how can we reduce the stress, but keep in mind, that's a skill that we sometimes need to teach kids and adults, by the way. And we need to support that throughout our day. I don't know if you guys are doing enough of the mindfulness and meditation and the exercise breaks. There's so many things that we could be doing, okay? And third, I want to make sure that as adults, we create an environment for students where we are focusing more on their effort and the process that they're doing their work more than we're worried about the outcome. Because this is going to allow our kids to maintain a sense of control over the outcome. They're going to see that their success is not just based on how smart they are, right, their innate intelligence, but rather on their efforts and the strategies that they're using. So I hope that in the future I'm going to have an opportunity to support you all more directly and extensively through my workshops and through my training. In fact, I've got people participating in my parent coaching workshops from all over the world, and you are welcome to join me in those. You know, there's a famous quote by the American anthropologist Margaret Mead. She says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed people can change the world, because indeed that is the only thing that ever has. Step by step, we can help these children thrive and succeed, and we can support the parents and the educators by all working together, creating a common language and a common set of resources that we use." So I thank you again all for having me. I wish you all the very best. Take care.